If silence simply means saying nothing, why did Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani describe it as the highest form of divine speech? Modern culture equates speech with influence and silence with absence. We post, comment, explain, and defend in order to exist publicly. Yet the more we talk, the less we often perceive. Jilani proposes an inversion. Silence is not a vacuum. It is a refined state of awareness in which the ego's noise subsides and truth becomes audible. In this view, genuine communication begins before words. From a neuroscientific perspective, internally quiet states are not empty. During silence, large-scale brain networks reorganize, enabling pattern recognition and insight. When self-referential chatter eases, attentional resources redistribute toward deeper perception. This lecture explores how Jilani's concept of samt, or disciplined silence, functions as a cognitive, emotional, ethical, and spiritual technology, and why, under certain conditions, silence speaks more truthfully than speech. Our objective is to articulate a rational framework, how silence regulates mind and heart, how it refines the ethics of expression, and how it culminates in a state where words emerge as transparent carriers of meaning, rather than vehicles of ego. The contemporary mind operates under continuous stimulation. Notifications fragment attention. Rapid conversational exchanges leave little space for reflection. The outcome is cognitive noise, simultaneous streams of thought, sensation, and social evaluation. Psychologically, this leads to attentional fragmentation, decision fatigue, and a bias toward reactive speech. Much of this speech serves ego maintenance, language used to confirm identity and manage social position, not to disclose insight. The consequence is a high volume of expression with low informational value. Neurologically, constant input elevates baseline arousal, narrowing cognitive flexibility and increasing impulsivity. When arousal is high, the brain favors rapid, habitual responses over measured reasoning. Extended periods of silence correlate with more integrated neural processing, improved regulation of the limbic system, richer connectivity across networks involved in insight, and a shift from externally cued reactivity to internally anchored observation. The modern problem is not a lack of information, but a lack of conditions that allow information to organize into knowledge. Silence is feared because it loosens the ego's sense of control. Yet it is precisely this loosening that allows higher order structure, what Jilani would call divine order, to be perceived. Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani united rational theology with inner discipline. He taught that silence is not mere muteness, but discipline of consciousness. The tongue of the body is speech. The tongue of the heart is silence. If perception is distorted by egoic noise, speech will transmit distortion, purifying perception, and speech becomes accurate by necessity. Speech is the output function of cognition and emotion. If inputs are noisy, bias, insecurity, anger, the output carries that noise. Silence, practiced as conscious stilling rather than suppression, reduces internal interference. This does not reject speech. It conditions speech to align with reality. Jilani links ethical communication to metacognitive awareness, the ability to observe mental content without automatic identification or compulsion. Silence is therefore a rational discipline. Improve perception first, and speech will improve as a consequence. Jilani described 4 dimensions of divine silence. Cognitive silence suspends inner commentary. The mind's continual self-talk acts as a filter between stimulus and understanding. This chatter is the first barrier to authentic communication with truth. In psychological terms, cognitive silence reduces rumination and worry. From a neuroscientific perspective, downregulation of self-referential processing frees attentional bandwidth for pattern detection, the basis of insight. Complex problem-solving often resolves after a quiet pause or a walk. The reduction of inner commentary allows previously unintegrated information to cohere. Cognitive silence is a method of thinking without verbal noise. It does not eliminate analysis. It optimizes it by removing redundancy. Emotional silence regulates the heart's turbulence. Jilani's silence of the heart is not emotional shutdown, but emotional regulation, reducing reactivity so perception can stabilize. Agitated affect distorts interpretation. Calm affect clarifies it. Labeling emotions, paced breathing, and non-judgmental observation downshift limbic activation and increase prefrontal control. Physiologically, parasympathetic activation supports slower heart rate and improved variability, both associated with resilience and clearer decision-making. In conflict, a short pause of silence allows emotions to settle and meaning to clarify. When the surface of the lake is still, the image reflected is clearer. Ethical silence concerns the responsibility of speech. Jilani warns that words carry moral energy. Speech formed in egoic agitation inflates the self and fragments community. Speech formed in silence illuminates and integrates. Speak only when silence requires translation, when what is perceived clearly must be delivered clearly. This frames speech as a deliberate act, constrained by truthfulness and benefit. Leaders who practice measured silence, listening, analyzing, and speaking concisely create stability. Their words carry signal, not noise, because silence filtered them first. Ethical silence removes distortion, so that speech can serve shared reality. Spiritual silence is the culmination, becoming a medium of divine speech. Here, self-centered authorship dissolves. The person does not speak about truth as an object. Speech arises from alignment with truth. When egoic agenda quiets, meaning seems to articulate itself. From a neuroscientific view, this parallels flow states, self-monitoring, increased network integration, and effortless coherence. In such moments, one feels like a conduit rather than a producer. Jilani would say that when the heart is disciplined, truth uses it as an instrument. At this level, silence continues even when words begin. Jilani's doctrine does not oppose communication. It perfects its prerequisites. Silence is the ground state for valid expression. Regulate perception, refine intention, and speak with fidelity to reality. Silence is not avoidance or passivity. It is active receptivity, a disciplined stance that prioritizes accuracy over immediacy. The ego assumes knowledge comes from accumulation, more facts, more opinions. Jilani relocates knowledge in alignment. By lowering internal noise, the system detects order already present. This aligns with cognitive science, showing that insight emerges when analytic pressure relaxes and associative networks integrate unconsciously. If reality is ordered, reliable knowledge requires the knower to become orderly. Silence is therefore an epistemic ethic. Become a fit instrument, and truth will be less distorted as it passes through you. Practically, Jilani's teaching can be expressed as 5 disciplines of intelligent silence. Daily cognitive pause, 2 to 5 minutes. Several times a day, with no input or output. Sit, breathe, and allow commentary to settle. Over time, mental noise decreases and clarity increases. Observation before speech, before responding under emotion. Label the dominant feeling and take 3 paced breaths. This reduces reactivity and increases precision. Selective communication. Ask, is this accurate, and is this necessary? Speak only when both answers are yes. This preserves credibility and reduces unnecessary noise. Contemplative listening. Track both the speaker's meaning and your own internal reactions. This dual awareness prevents projection and fosters understanding. Ritual silence. A period of quiet at night or dawn. This anchors coherence and strengthens calm, practiced consistently. These disciplines lower arousal, increase flexibility, and refine the ethics of communication. The person speaks less, but with greater density of meaning. Speech shifts from assertion to articulation, from personal agenda to service of clarity. We began with a paradox. How can silence become divine speech? Jilani's answer is methodological. Silence refines the perceiver so that language can convey reality with minimal distortion. Quiet the inner commentary, regulate affect, constrain speech ethically, and allow meaning to emerge from alignment rather than compulsion. Disciplined silence reduces rumination, improves control, and fosters insight. It supports neural reconfiguration favorable to creativity and empathy. It increases the truth value of speech by ensuring that it originates in a clarified perception rather than in the turbulence of ego. In a world saturated with unfiltered output, silence becomes a competitive advantage for truth. Where others rush to speak, the disciplined individual listens, aligns, and articulates precisely what needs to be said, no more, no less. When silence reaches maturity, words do not interrupt it, they carry it. The self ceases to be the author and becomes the instrument. It is no longer you who strives to speak the truth. It is truth, through you, making itself heard.